My name is Logan Pierce, and I'm 36 years old. 6 months ago, I thought I had everything figured out. I had a solid career as a regional sales manager at Horizon Logistics, pulling in $84,000 a year. Not rich, but comfortable. I owned a 3-bedroom house in a decent neighborhood, bought it 2 years before I got married, back when I was still naive enough to believe in happily ever after. I had a wife who smiled when I came home from business trips, who kissed me goodbye every morning, who made our house feel like a home. Her name is Claire. Was Claire, I should say. She's 34, with auburn hair that catches the light just right and green eyes that used to make my heart skip. We met 4 years ago through mutual friends at a barbecue. She was laughing at something ridiculous, head thrown back, completely unself-conscious. I knew I wanted to marry her before our second date. We dated for a year before I proposed. Small wedding, nothing fancy, just family and close friends. Those first 2 years of marriage felt like a dream. Claire worked as an administrative assistant at a dental office, and I remember how she'd text me throughout my business trips, sending photos of dinner she'd made or some project she was working on. When I'd walk through the front door after 3 or 4 days in Denver or Phoenix or Seattle, she'd light up like I was the best part of her day. 2 years into our marriage, Claire quit her job. She said she was tired of office politics, tired of dealing with demanding patients and a micromanaging boss. She wanted to focus on making our home a sanctuary, as she put it. I supported her decision completely. We could afford it on my salary, and if it made her happy, it made me happy. Happy wife, happy life, isn't that what they say? My job required travel 8 to 10 days a month. Regional sales means visiting clients, negotiating contracts, maintaining relationships across 3 states. I'd hit Denver for 2 days, Phoenix for 3, sometimes Seattle for a week. Claire seemed perfectly content with this arrangement. She filled her days with yoga classes, shopping trips, home improvement projects. She'd spend hours rearranging furniture, painting accent walls, turning our house into something that belonged in a magazine. What made it easier was that Claire had family nearby. Her older sister Natalie lived 20 minutes away with her husband Luke and their 2 kids. Natalie Carter, she kept her maiden name professionally, is 37, and everything Claire isn't. Where Claire is soft and domestic, Natalie is sharp and ambitious. She's a corporate attorney pulling in $160 a year, working 60-hour weeks, always impeccably dressed and completely in control. Luke Carter is Natalie's husband of 9 years, 39 years old, and for the past year, unemployed. He got laid off from some mid-level marketing position and spent his days between opportunities, which seemed to mean sitting on their couch playing video games while Natalie worked herself to death. During family dinners, Natalie would talk about her latest case while Luke sat quietly, picking at his food, contributing nothing to the conversation. I never paid much attention to Luke. He seemed harmless enough, if a bit lazy and unmotivated. The kind of guy who lets his wife carry the financial burden while he figures himself out. Claire and Natalie talked every day, sometimes for hours. They'd been close since childhood, and I was glad my wife had that support system while I traveled. Everything seemed normal. Everything seemed fine. Claire would kiss me goodbye, tell me she'd miss me, remind me to text when I landed. She'd send me photos of her day, coffee shop visits, yoga class, dinner with Natalie and the kids. I'd call every night, and we'd talk about nothing important. My work, her day, plans for the weekend. I thought I knew my life. I thought I knew my wife. I was about to discover I knew neither. The first sign wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a lipstick stain or a suspicious text. It was a smell. Cologne I didn't wear, lingering in my house after a 3-day trip to Dallas. I walked through the front door on a Thursday evening, dragging my suitcase, and something felt wrong. Not bad wrong, just different. The house smelled like someone else had been there. Masculine cologne, woody and expensive. Not mine. I wear Old Spice. This was something else entirely. "Hey, babe," Claire called from the kitchen, appearing with a glass of wine and that same bright smile. "How was Dallas?" "Fine," I answered, still processing the smell. House smells different. She laughed, the sound light and dismissive. I bought a new air freshener. Sandalwood something. Too strong? She asked. Plausible. Easy to accept. I kissed her hello and forgot about it. But the anomalies kept coming. After a trip to Phoenix, I found 2 wine glasses in the sink instead of 1. When I asked, Claire explained that her friend Sarah had come over for dinner. Made sense. Sarah was always dropping by unannounced. After Seattle, the bed was made differently than Claire usually made it. She was casual about bed making, just pulling the comforter up and calling it done. But this time it had hospital corners, crisp and tight. When I mentioned it, she laughed and said she'd watched a YouTube video about proper bed-making techniques. After Denver, there were dishes in the sink that weren't there when I left. A coffee mug I didn't recognize. A plate with crumbs from food we didn't have in the house. The living room furniture was arranged slightly differently. The coffee table moved 6 inches closer to the couch, throw pillows repositioned. Each explanation was reasonable in isolation. Claire had friends over. She was trying new things. She was redecorating. But together, they formed a pattern I couldn't ignore. I'd lie awake at night, Claire sleeping peacefully beside me, and wonder if I was losing my mind. Was I paranoid? Jealous without cause? I'd traveled for work for years without suspicion. Why was I suddenly seeing threats in wine glasses and cologne? I considered confronting her directly. But what would I say? I think you're cheating because you made the bed differently. I'd sound insane. I didn't want to be that husband. Suspicious, accusatory, poisoning my marriage with paranoia. Then came the Portland trip. 4 days in late September, meeting with a major client who could triple our West Coast contracts. The night before I left, I made a decision that would change everything. I drove to an electronics store and bought a small wireless camera, motion-activated, HD quality, with smartphone connectivity. The kind of thing people use for home security. I told the salesperson I wanted to keep an eye on the house while traveling. Not a lie, technically. I hid it in the living room bookshelf, angled to capture the front door and most of the main floor. Small enough to be invisible, positioned behind some books. If nothing happened, I'd remove it and never mention it. If something did happen, well, I'd deal with that when the time came. Monday morning, I kissed Claire goodbye, rolled my suitcase to the car, and flew to Portland. During my first day of meetings, I forced myself not to check the camera. I was probably wrong. I was probably paranoid. There would be nothing to see. Tuesday at lunch, sitting in a restaurant overlooking the Columbia River, I finally opened the camera app on my phone. Motion-activated clips from the past day. Morning footage showed Claire making coffee, doing yoga, normal domestic routine. Then I reached the 3:32 p.m. clip. The doorbell rang. Claire answered, and my world collapsed. A man entered my house, my brother-in-law, Luke Carter. They hugged, too long, too close, too familiar. They moved to the couch, talking, laughing. Claire's hand rested on Luke's arm in a way that spoke of intimacy, of routine. At 3:47 p.m., Luke leaned in and kissed her. Claire didn't pull away. She kissed him back like she meant it. At 4:10 p.m., they walked upstairs together, out of camera view. Luke didn't leave until 6:45 p.m. I sat in that restaurant bathroom for 20 minutes, watching the footage over and over, feeling physically sick. My wife, her sister's unemployed husband, in my house, in my bed, most likely. I saved everything to cloud storage, deleted nothing. Returned to my meeting on autopilot, shaking hands and discussing logistics, while my mind raced through implications. How long had this been going on? Every time I traveled? Every excuse? Every explanation? Every kiss goodbye? All of it lies. I didn't confront Claire when I got home. Not yet. I needed more than one incident. I needed undeniable proof. I had 5 days to plan before my next scheduled trip. 5 days to prepare for the performance of my life. 5 days before I'd make them both understand what happens when you betray the wrong man. My next business trip was scheduled for the following Monday. 5 days in San Francisco for a major client presentation. 5 days that would give Claire and Luke plenty of time to continue their affair. Except this time, I wouldn't be in San Francisco. I'd be 2 miles away, watching every moment. The 2 weeks between discovering the camera footage and my planned confrontation were the longest of my life. I had to act completely normal around Claire. Kiss her goodbye in the mornings, text her during the day, come home and ask about her day while knowing exactly how she'd spent her afternoon. She was either an exceptional liar or genuinely didn't believe she was doing anything wrong. This realization chilled me more than the affair itself. When she kissed me, there was no guilt in her eyes, no shame, no recognition that she was destroying our marriage every time I left town. I prepared methodically. First, I called my boss and explained I had a family emergency, requesting the week off while maintaining the appearance of the San Francisco trip. He agreed without question. I'd never taken unplanned time off. I researched divorce law in our state. The house was my premarital asset. Claire had no legal claim to it. Our joint savings account contained $44,000. I was legally entitled to half. I transferred $22,000 to a separate account I'd opened. I contacted a divorce attorney and scheduled a consultation for the day after my planned confrontation. I backed up all camera footage to multiple cloud accounts. I purchased a burner phone for documentation. I planned my route from the motel to my house. 2 minutes, 47 seconds. I timed it 3 times. Monday morning arrived. I performed my usual departure routine with Academy Award precision. Kissed Claire goodbye at the kitchen counter. Told her I'd text when I landed. Rolled my suitcase to the car while she watched from the doorway, coffee mug in hand, probably already anticipating Luke's arrival. I drove to a downtown parking garage, left my car, and took an Uber to the Riverside Motel, a dive establishment 2 miles from my house. The room smelled like cigarettes and industrial disinfectant, but it was perfect. Close enough to reach my house in minutes, far enough that no one would think to look for me there. I settled onto the sagging mattress and opened the camera app. Empty living room. Waiting. Monday morning passed with normal domestic activity. Claire doing yoga, making lunch, watching television. I forced myself to eat a protein bar, though my stomach was churning with anticipation. At 2:47 p.m., the doorbell rang. My entire body went rigid. Claire opened the door and Luke entered, carrying a bottle of wine like he was visiting friends. They embraced immediately, not the casual hug of in-laws, but the desperate embrace of lovers who'd been counting the hours. I watched with cold fury as they kissed in my entryway, pawing at each other's clothes with shameless hunger. They didn't even make it to the couch first this time. They were too desperate, too eager, stumbling toward the stairs like teenagers. At exactly 3:20 p.m., I grabbed my keys and drove home. My heart was hammering, but my mind was crystal clear. I parked down the street and approached my house on foot. The front door was unlocked. They'd been too frantic to think about security. I could hear them upstairs as I stood in my own entryway. Unmistakable sounds. My wife and her sister's husband in my bed. Every muscle in my body was coiled with controlled rage. I climbed the stairs slowly, deliberately, each step measured. The bedroom door was wide open, arrogant in their carelessness. I stood in the doorway for exactly 3 seconds, watching Claire naked beneath Luke in the bed I'd bought, in the house I'd built, in the marriage I'd believed in. Then I moved. Oh, shit! Luke saw me first, his eyes going wide with animal terror. But I was already across the room, grabbing him by the arm and yanking him off my wife with enough force to send him crashing to the floor. Claire screamed my name, clutching the sheet to her chest, but her voice was white noise. My focus was singular. Luke tried to crawl away, but I kicked him hard in the ribs. The crack echoed through the room. He gasped, curling into a fetal position. "You thought you could have my wife in my house?" I said, my voice ice. No yelling, no screaming, just cold, absolute control. I kicked him again, this time in the groin. Luke's scream was primal, high-pitched. He was trying to speak, choking out, I'm sorry, But words were meaningless now. I grabbed him by the hair, hauled him to his feet, and punched him square in the jaw. His head snapped back. Blood sprayed across my carpet in my house, where he'd been meeting my wife. "Get out!" I ordered, shoving him toward the door. "If I ever see you again, I'll kill you." The words weren't a threat. They were a promise. Luke stumbled down the stairs, still naked, blood streaming from his nose, grabbing his scattered clothes from the living room floor. He fled out the front door like the coward he was. I turned to Claire. She was sobbing, mascara running, trying to explain. "It didn't mean anything. It was a mistake, please." "Get dressed. Get out," I commanded. "This is my home," she protested. "No," I replied flatly. "This is my home. I bought it before we married. My name, my mortgage. You have zero legal claim. You have 10 minutes before I call the police for trespassing." The finality in my voice broke through her denial. She scrambled to dress, grabbed her phone and purse, and ran. I stood in my empty house, the silence deafening after months of lies. Then I called my attorney. 2 hours after Claire fled my house, someone pounded on my front door. Bang, 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 aggressive and demanding. I knew who it was before I opened it. Natalie stood on my porch, face red with fury, still wearing her courtroom suit from whatever case had consumed her day. "Logan, what the hell is wrong with you?" she demanded. Behind her controlled exterior, I could see the rage of a successful woman who wasn't used to family drama interrupting her perfectly ordered life. Claire had called her, obviously, probably sobbing about how her unreasonable husband had kicked her out over some stupid fight. "You need to fix this," she continued, pushing past me into my living room. "Claire is devastated. She's at my house crying her eyes out, and she won't tell me what happened except that you lost your mind and threw her out. This is insane, Logan. You don't just kick your wife out of her home." "Her home," I repeated quietly. "Yes, her home. You're married. This is community property. You can't just—" she argued. I walked to my laptop, opened it, and pressed play on the camera footage. Natalie's voice died mid-sentence as she watched her sister open our front door. Her expression shifted from anger to confusion as Luke entered the frame. Confusion to horror as they embraced. Horror to devastation as they kissed with desperate hunger. What is this?" she whispered. "That's your husband," I said, my voice flat. "Having intimacy with my wife, in my house, in my bed. Every time I leave town for work." Natalie's legs buckled. She collapsed onto my couch, the same couch where she'd watched her husband kiss her sister. Her hands were shaking. "I had no idea," she breathed. "I worked so much, I trusted him. I trusted her." She started crying. Not the controlled tears of a woman trying to maintain dignity, but raw, body-shaking sobs. For a moment, my anger dissipated into something like sympathy. Natalie had worked 60-hour weeks to support her family while her unemployed husband slept with her sister. She'd been betrayed just as completely as I had. "How long?" she managed to ask. "I don't know. I only found out last month, but the signs, it could have been going on for months," I answered. Natalie looked up at me, tears streaming down her face, and I saw the exact moment her grief hardened into something colder. The successful attorney who'd built her career destroying opposing counsel was about to turn those skills on her own husband. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "I've already called my attorney. Filing for divorce tomorrow." "Claire gets nothing," I replied. Natalie nodded slowly, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. "Good," she said firmly. She stood, walked to the door, then paused. "Thank you for telling me. I deserved to know." "Yes, you did," I agreed. As she left, I saw the transformation in her eyes. The betrayed wife was gone, replaced by the predatory attorney who'd made a career of destroying people in courtroom combat. Luke had chosen the wrong woman to betray. The next week moved with surgical precision. My divorce was straightforward, premarital assets, documented infidelity, no children to complicate custody. My attorney presented the evidence, camera footage, timeline of betrayals, proof that the house was mine before marriage. Claire didn't contest. She couldn't. She had no leverage and knew it. The settlement was brutal in its simplicity. I kept the house, my 401k, all investments. We split joint savings 50-50, $22,000 each, a fraction of what the betrayal had cost me emotionally. Claire walked away with nothing else. No alimony, no claim to my assets, nothing. But Claire's destruction was nothing compared to what Natalie unleashed on Luke. 1 week after discovering the affair, Natalie filed for divorce. She hired Barbara Westwood, a legendary attorney famous for bankrupting unfaithful spouses. Westwood's reputation was built on scorched-earth divorce settlements that left cheating husbands financially ruined. The discovery process was merciless. Natalie provided documentation of Luke's year-long unemployment, his complete financial dependence, his failure to contribute to household expenses or even seek meaningful employment. Combined with irrefutable evidence of the affair, I'd shared the camera footage, Luke had no defense. He tried to negotiate. Through his public defender, he couldn't afford a real attorney. Luke begged Natalie to be reasonable. "It was a mistake. I love you. I love the kids. Please don't destroy me," he pleaded. Natalie's response, delivered through Barbara Westwood, was devastating. "You should have thought about that before you f***ed my sister," she replied coldly. The final divorce settlement was a complete annihilation. Natalie received full custody of both children, ages 7 and 5. Luke's affair with her sister's wife proved moral unfitness as a parent. Natalie kept their house, worth $450,000. Natalie kept all investments, retirement accounts, and savings. Luke received no alimony. His unemployment and infidelity eliminated any claim to support. Luke was granted supervised visitation only, 2 hours every other Saturday, with a court-appointed supervisor present. Luke was required to pay child support despite having no substantial income. The court calculated payments based on his earning potential, not his current grocery store wages. Within 3 months, Luke had lost everything: his wife, his children, his home, his financial security, his dignity. He moved into a studio apartment in the worst part of town, working night shifts stocking shelves at a grocery store for minimum wage. His parents, ashamed of his behavior, refused to help him financially. His children barely spoke to him during supervised visits, confused and hurt by his betrayal of their mother. Claire fared slightly better, but not much. She was waitressing at a chain restaurant, sharing a small apartment with a roommate. Her parents, conservative and religious, were horrified by the affair and cut off all financial support. Her social circle evaporated as word spread about her behavior. The woman who'd spent 4 years building the perfect home now served chicken wings to pay rent. Claire and Luke never contacted each other after the divorces were finalized. The affair that had seemed so worth the risk, so thrilling and romantic, ended with mutual resentment and blame. Each held the other responsible for their destruction. I attended both final divorce hearings, watched Claire sign the papers with shaking hands, watched Luke's lawyer explain that he was now legally obligated to pay child support he couldn't afford, felt nothing but cold satisfaction. The gavel came down. The judge declared both marriages legally dissolved. Claire and Luke walked out of the courthouse in opposite directions, strangers bound only by mutual destruction. And I walked out a free man. 3 months after the divorce, I moved out of the house where the betrayal occurred. I couldn't live there anymore. Every room held memories of the lies, the deception, the naive trust I'd placed in a woman who never deserved it. I sold it immediately after the divorce finalized, netting a substantial profit that I invested wisely. My new downtown condo is everything the house wasn't: modern, minimalist, untainted by the past. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlook the city skyline. Clean lines, expensive furniture, no family photos or sentimental decorations. It's a space that belongs entirely to me, free from the contamination of shared memories. Work is thriving. When my boss learned about my difficult personal situation, he was impressed by my professionalism throughout the crisis. Never missed a meeting, never let personal drama affect my performance. Last month, he promoted me to senior regional manager with a $15,000 raise. My travel schedule remains demanding, but now I return to an empty condo that feels like peace, not loneliness. I'm dating again, carefully and selectively. A few dinners, some second dates, nothing serious. I've learned to trust my instincts, to pay attention to red flags I once dismissed. Women find my story compelling, the wronged husband who handled his divorce with such strategic precision. I don't tell them the complete truth about what I did to Luke. Some details are better left unshared. Natalie and I stay in touch. Coffee meetings every few weeks where we talk about work, life, the strange bond that forms between people who survived the same destruction. There's no romance between us. We're both too damaged, too aware of how marriages can implode. But there's mutual respect, understanding, the recognition of shared experience. She's thrown herself into work and motherhood with impressive intensity. 60-hour weeks followed by soccer games and piano recitals, proving to her children that stability can exist even after betrayal. Her kids are adjusting well. Children are resilient when they have one strong parent who refuses to fall apart. Claire is still waitressing, still sharing that small apartment. Her Instagram, once filled with carefully curated photos of her perfect life, is now private and largely inactive. Her parents won't speak to her. Her friend circle has dwindled to almost nothing. She's 34, starting over from scratch, living the consequences of her choices. Luke is worse off. Night shift at the grocery store, barely making child support payments. His supervised visits with his kids are awkward and painful. His son barely acknowledges him. His daughter cries when it's time to leave. Natalie ensures the children understand their father made choices that hurt people, but she doesn't poison them against him. She doesn't have to. Luke's absence and failures speak for themselves. The affair that destroyed 2 marriages is now just mutual regret and blame. Claire and Luke never speak. The passion that seemed worth risking everything has curdled into bitter resentment. Justice, it turns out, is a dish best served through legal channels and social consequences. No violence required, just the systematic dismantling of lives through their own poor choices. 6 months have passed since I watched Claire sign our divorce papers with trembling hands. I'm sitting on my condo balcony this Sunday morning, drinking coffee and watching the sunrise paint the city skyline in shades of gold and amber. The view never gets old. 32 floors above the noise and chaos, clean air and infinite possibility stretching out before me. I think about the man I was a year ago. Logan Pierce, the trusting husband who believed in marriage vows and happy endings, who came home from business trips expecting honesty and finding performance, who noticed small inconsistencies and wondered if he was going crazy. That man was naive, but he wasn't weak. When the betrayal was revealed, he didn't collapse. He strategized. The transformation wasn't instant. Those first few weeks after discovering the camera footage, I felt like I was drowning. Every conversation with Claire was agony. Knowing what I knew while pretending everything was normal. Every kiss goodbye was poison. Every "I love you" was a knife twist. But somewhere in that darkness, I found something stronger than heartbreak. I found resolve. Claire had made her choice. Luke had made his. I would make mine, and mine would be permanent. The revenge wasn't about anger, though anger certainly fueled it initially. It was about justice, about ensuring that people face the full weight of their decisions. Claire wanted to play house with her sister's husband while I paid the bills and played the fool. Fine. But she would do it without my house, my support, my protection from consequences. Luke wanted to destroy his marriage for afternoon intimacy with his wife's sister? Perfect. He could learn what life looks like when you lose a woman who actually worked while you played video games and messed around. I don't feel guilt about what I did to them. I feel satisfaction. The cold, permanent satisfaction of a man who refused to be a victim. My phone buzzes with a text from a woman I've been dating, Sarah, a marketing executive who travels as much as I do. We're having dinner tonight at a restaurant with a month-long waiting list. She's intelligent, successful, independent. She pays for her own meals and doesn't need me to provide her identity. I've learned to recognize the difference between a woman who wants a partner and one who wants a provider, between genuine affection and performance designed to secure comfort, between love and convenience. Claire is 34 now, serving chicken wings and splitting rent with a stranger. Luke is 39, stocking shelves and seeing his children 4 hours a month under supervision. Their choices led them exactly where they deserve to be. I'm 36, divorced, free. My wife betrayed me with her sister's husband in my house, in my bed. So I made sure they both paid for it with everything they had to lose. Some might call it cold. I call it justice, and I've never been happier.